on our website. Ready, all set? Okay, well, thanks everybody for coming on a Wednesday afternoon here to join us for an exciting introduction and announcement. We're very pleased to be hosting Mark Coran and Raphael Freddy of Campus Habitations for a special announcement regarding their proposed development at Rouse Corners. Now, Mark and Raphael, along with their entire Campus Habitations team, I have to say, have been exemplary to work with to this point. They've met every timeline commitment that they made to us. And let me tell you, it was an aggressive timeline that they laid out. The pressure, I think, is going to be on us now in the months ahead. And they readily incorporated our feedback throughout their initial due diligence and their design work. And it's important for me to point out that the proposal not only aims to provide much needed relief to the local housing crisis, but it does so in a very sensitive and thoughtful manner. It was important to council that any proposal that we were looking at acknowledged the significant recreational history of the property. And Campus Habitations has certainly met that requirement head on, I have to say, by incorporating a number of active and passive recreational amenities in its design. And those would have been very difficult for the township to provide on its own without incurring, really significant financial pressures. So I don't want to steal any thunder from these gentlemen. That they deserve the limelight today. They've certainly done the lion's share of the work over the last 4 months to get us to this point. So at this point, I'm not sure which one would like to come to the podium first. I guess you're closest, Mark. You can start.
I'll start.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for being here. Campus Habitation has been the brainchild of something we've been working on for about 3 years now. We have some interest in Quebec, and we found that the employees needed housing, and it was a question of we can't find employees. We can't find them in third-party or tertiary locations such as now Elizabethtown-Kitley and the Rockville greater area and so on. And the lenders and the development community were really pushing towards supporting stuff within the big cities and so on. So we saw a gap in providing some employee housing or just basic housing in these secondary and tertiary markets. So we decided to try to tackle that problem selfishly for our own projects out in Quebec, but eventually we said we want to make this thing repeatable and scalable. And what that allowed us to do was expand our businesses throughout a couple of places in Quebec, a few cities, and then we said, okay, it's time to go to Ontario. And then we went and did a bunch of stuff in Ontario, and we found ourselves over here. Ralph's going to talk a little bit more about the experience over here, which has been absolutely fantastic, and we are humbled by the reception that we've gotten. So I'll talk on the emotional level. He'll tell us the tactical stuff. But basically, we're looking to have fully furnished rental housing for employees and the local population, anybody who wants to move in, with something more than just a parking lot around the campuses themselves. You can go into any town out there and find these 4-story with no elevator buildings and so on, but they're usually surrounded by just a parking lot. So we decided we want to have the concept of a campus, a place that people can live, that they can raise their children, they can live there before they move into a house, maybe later on and so on, but they'll always remember their time there fondly. So you'll see that the design of our systems and processes that we have out there always have a campus feel in the middle, so people can call this place home rather than just be a place to hang up your boots at night. When you have the concept of fully furnished, it really means that people are going to come over, whether it be from the hospital, you have a nurse that comes, or a doctor or a doctor in training coming from the University of Ottawa. They come with their suitcase, they put it in there, they get to work, they come back at night, fully furnished down to the utensils and so on. So that's the concept that we're looking for. So that's what Campus Habitations is. Raph and I are the co-founders. We've got architectural teams and engineering teams and lawyers and so on in Quebec and Ontario. We've made it into an Ontario product as well now. We're finding the architecture here is a little bit more demanding, but that's also very good. And so are the environmental standards here. So there's some interprovincial differences, but we're very confident that we've gotten some really great stuff. We can see the 300-page manual. I won't steal your thunder. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let him go with his part. Why don't you take over here and take us through what's been happening over here? Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Wow, it's great to see you guys here. Like Mark said, it's actually I'm humbled. I'm privileged and humbled, and quite frankly, what's nice is that this is not we decided to focus on on towns that weren't the city of Ottawa or the city of Montreal because we're too detached from those. And I have to say the experience here has been absolutely incredible from both the business perspective on the business development side, initially through you, Charlie. Then subsequent introductions to some of the esteemed, I'll call you guys the esteemed business leaders in the community. And the introduction that, I mean, we spent a day in the summertime. You hosted us by driving us around and pointing out opportunities for us. You're not going to get that kind of service in Ottawa or in Montreal. So that's certainly very, very appreciated, very welcome. So we did come forward with some objectives that you guys were very receptive to. It's no hiding the fact that there's a shortage of housing in Canada from coast to coast, pretty prevalent in Ontario. So the rationale for us doing what we were proposing to do was very well received, of course. But what made this even more compelling was the cooperation that we had from town council, the members that we met earlier on in the latter part of the year. So that's very makes a big difference for us, and it allowed us to put forward some pretty aggressive timelines, which some of the people present were a little bit dubious about, which that's okay. I mean, you know, I like to say internally we're on Elon Musk schedules the way we work. We're not going to accept the fact that there's something just because it's taken 24 months in the past, it still has to take 24 months. So I think it was as recently as August or September, August. I think we made the commitment that we're going to deliver our site plan application request on or before December the 15th. And we had our discussions leading up to it. You said if you wanted to extend or delay, because I know it's a lot of, and we just said, no, this is it. This is what we've got, over 400 pages here that were deposited last Friday. And as you earlier on said, Shelley, the toughest part is getting the wheel moving. And I think we started that. So we're very, very proud to, Mark talked about Quebec and this being our first Ontario. Quite frankly, this will be our flagship. I mean, we're talking about a community that's going to have a first phase of probably 200 odd units. In all, we can accommodate, if we develop this to the nth degree on the 30 acres, it will represent over 600 units, which is not an insignificant product. Represents an investment well in excess of $100 million. So it's an important piece of the community, and it's in our name. Campus Habitations is called Campus Habitations for a reason, because campus forms the core of what we're really all about. We want to, as Mark had said, we're not just a parking lot. You saw the green spaces. We'll have a public skating rink. We'll have beach volleyball courts. We've got tennis courts that are in the program, basketball courts. So green space, hiking trails. One of the things we saw when we went on the site was people with walking their dogs. And I mean, I've had 2 dogs. I'm a dog lover, and I saw these people going, oh my gosh, what's going to be the reaction when they hear that there's some development going on here and it's like a big bad developer. But you know, with my background, with what we take to heart, we want to ensure to enhance what's there already and not just, you know, be perceived as the big bad developer. So I saw these people walking their dogs, and I said they're going to love it with what we're going to be putting in here with the trails and the walking paths and whatnot. So I hope it's very welcomed by the community, by the existing community, and certainly it's going to fill a void for the housing for the employers that are looking for housing for their employees in the sector. We're confident, we're supremely confident this is going to be a very, very successful site. And as I said, probably our standard bearing site for moving forward. So I just want to take the opportunity. I'm kind of making it a bit longer, but take the opportunity to thank particularly you, Mayor Burrow, the help you've given us. Charlie, you've introduced us to both Shelley and David, and you guys are getting involved now. It's just been incredible support from everybody. I can't ignore you, Leslie. You're the real brainchild behind all of this, right? And just the support has been incredible. So thank you very much. We're here as much to announce what we're doing as much as to thank you for the assistance and continued support that we're looking on this project.
Thank you for that, gentlemen, and I wanted to give you the brightest spotlight, but I certainly don't want to overlook some of the special guests that we have here. So first of all, I'm going to start off by offering regrets from some members of council that couldn't be here for various reasons. Councillor Eady is at work, very excited about the project and couldn't be here. Councillor Brayton unfortunately wasn't able to make it today either, and Councillor Smith, I think, is also tied up at work. But we've got the rest of the council here, Councillor Ultrahoff, Councillor Renault, Councillor Linton. And of course, in our public gallery here, I've got fellow Mayor, His Worship Matt Wren from the City of Brockville. Of course, we might imagine with the proximity to the city, and we know that most of the jobs that are going unfilled in the region are within the city. So hopefully, this will provide some of the much needed relief to the business community within your borders. And speaking of that, we have two esteemed members, as Raphael said, of the Brockville business community here with us. David Beattie from Canarm and Shelley Bacon from Northern Cable. So thanks, gentlemen, for coming. And of course, Charlie Mignol from the St. Lawrence Corridor Economic Development Commission, of which the township is a member. So we're certainly pleased to be in a position to partner in bringing an asset to the table with these developers whose benefit will impact not only the township, but as I said, will also extend well beyond our borders into the local region. So that's kind of exciting. And I can't overstate the importance of collaboration and recognizing opportunities when they present themselves. And so I mentioned the St. Lawrence Corridor Commission. This opportunity came to us through Charlie's efforts. And so at this point, Charlie, if you want to step up and say a few words on behalf of the corridor, that'd be great.
Thanks very much. Okay, well, thank you. I want to say thank you very much to Raphael and Mark for taking the time to look at this area and to discern whether this would be the right place for your investment, and certainly a significant investment, and certainly something the corridor looks forward to seeing and supporting as you move forward with your project. So welcome. I'd like to really thank Mayor Burrow and council for their support and all the work, and Leslie, you as well, and the staff here for all the work. It's really important that we face some of the challenges, and we have a housing crisis in our region, and that's really the number one constraint manufacturers are most concerned about because of the labor force constriction. And we know people will move from Toronto and Ottawa to the area, and they want to, but there's no housing supply. And of course, proximity to work and affordability are the two central issues, and this project addresses both of them exquisitely. And so we're very excited about that. Presently, we conducted a survey in October, and there's still 400 unfulfilled manufacturing jobs in the region. And so this kind of investment and this kind of quality and this kind of experience that campus habitation brings is critical for us to move forward, and will help manufacturers in terms of expanding the workforce, in terms of expanding productivity, reinvesting in manufacturing in the area, and to attract new manufacturers to the area as well. So we see this as a critical part of the ecosystem. I wanted to thank David and Shelley for the leadership and all the time and volunteerism they give to our region to help support growth in the area and infrastructure, and really to try to create a better place for all of us, because we know that these taxes that manufacturers pay trickle down and pay for the social welfare net that exists here as well. So we know this is a really important investment, and we appreciate the time that David and Shelley spend, and thanks for the leadership, Mayor Wren and Mayor Burrow and all the council, and just finish by saying how grateful we are for you to take the time. I remember that first drive with Mayor Burrow. We were driving around sites on a very hot day in I think it was June or around June,
yeah.
May or June. Anyway, a beautiful day, and ended up at Rouse Corners, and we realized it was as the crow flies, 900 meters from the Leclerc property, and very close to the new manufacturing plant that Shelley's created, and close to Canarm as well. So very, very happy, great day for all of us here in the municipality. So thank you very much.
I mentioned that we have a couple of heavyweight business leaders with us today, and we're certainly honored by that. Gentlemen, if you wanted an opportunity to say a few words, I think you actually put your money where your mouth is at par in terms of this project. So I think it's only fair if you wanted to say a few words, you have that opportunity.
Well, thank you, Mayor Burrow. I'd just like to say here, I'm currently the chair of the St. Lawrence Economic Development Corridor Commission. I've been involved with the commission for probably about 4 years or so. Part of that, I have to give David Beattie credit for being the chair and one of the main instigators of creating such a commission. And, we started this commission and started working on regional economic development. And we went down that path for a short number of years. And about partway through the process, we started hearing the complaint that people couldn't hire individuals. They weren't available, especially coming out of COVID. And the problem has lingered and actually grown in size. And you're going to hear different numbers about how many bodies were short. But what really hit home was this year, we started hearing that the hospital had problems in being able to hire the people that we need to take care of our healthcare. And they could be technologists and technicians and x-ray specialists and so forth. And, as was explained here by Mark and Rafi, some of these people can be coming in, they can be locums, they can stay in these places. And, I'd just like to say that the corridor struck up a working group, an industrial working group, and from the industrial working group, it morphed into a housing committee. And I got to give Charlie a lot of credit here because Charlie worked his connections very hard and brought in several developers to the region, met with the developers on several of occasions, viewed the properties, looked at the existing real estate available to see what could be affected. The number one problem, and I've met with some of the politicians in Queen's Park over this a couple of years ago, and I've talked to some of the MPs and MPPs where they have very, very low unemployment rates, and they have difficulty with the same issues we have in this region. And what they coined it was workforce housing. They do not have workforce housing. And workforce housing means housing that people that work in a factory environment, housing that these people can afford to buy or live in. And I think this is what campus habitation brings to this region here, is they're going to bring in this new style of housing for us on a rental basis. And this is probably going to be the first of its type, I think, in Ontario. And anything that's new and different is a little scary, obviously, but we have to start somewhere here because I just finished going through our factories, speaking with the staff at Christmas time, and I hear this from people. I mean, we have people working for us from Ukraine, from Africa, from the Maritimes, from all over. And you ask them, where do you live? Like, what are you doing? And some of them say that they have, I won't say the word totally given up, but they are very concerned about the ability to ever have their own place. And I think today's announcement is very important. I think it's a wonderful collaboration between this township and the city of Brockville to talk together about, accomplishing this goal. And we in the Corridor Commission are very pleased to see the results of the staff and the elected officials working together collaboratively to make this thing happen. So, thank you.
Well, the one thing I think that maybe has gone unsaid here, and I didn't want to steal any thunder from either Mark or Raphael, but one of the key elements of this particular project that hinges around the alignment of affordability with the CMHC's 30% rule. And I don't think enough attention has been paid to that in the presentation so far today. So I just want to take a moment and dwell on that. So based on an analysis of realistic wages in the area, the units that will be available in this particular project meet that 30% requirement. So when we talk about affordable housing, it truly is affordable for people that are at entry-level factory jobs and even the more senior jobs. So families, you might have two incomes, you can afford a fancier unit with more bedrooms and that type of thing, but even the single bedroom units are very, very accessible from an affordability standpoint. So that's what really attracted me personally to the opportunity that was in front of us. And I know there was, I think at least another couple of mayors that entertained you as well. And there were just a number of challenges with various sites. And I'm just thrilled that, you know, through your analysis, this is what fell out of the bottom of the funnel. And we're just extremely proud that we're going to make this the flagship as you move west across the province. So I just want to wrap things up with a brief note about sort of how we got here, because you know this may come as a bit of a surprise to some people, but in actual fact, if you paid attention to what has gone on in this first year of this term of council, it really started with our strategic planning process early on in the term. And I just want to highlight two bullets that we identified as a council as priorities. One was to review and challenge the status quo of the current land assets and oversee corporate property decisions to maximize value, particularly Rouse Corners Fairgrounds and North Augusta road properties. And also to prioritize growth, streamline development processes, and support developers in initiating new projects. So I think when you consider those two things and the announcement that's being made today, I think we've got it dark right in the bullseye, and we're just, you know, now we're going to move on to the next steps and throw the next dart and keep this thing moving forward. Since the strategic planning process took place, you know, we've had additional discussions throughout the spring and the summer at various committee meetings and council meetings, and most of those discussions were public. And then it got to a point where, as is normal in the process, some of that discussion had to move into closed session. But with the submission of the site plan just recently, you know, we're seizing this earliest opportunity now to get the issue back out into the public forum, and you know, we're excited to see what's going to come. I know that there's probably 100 questions, and I'll warn you, we probably only have answers to about 5 of them right now, because the reality is there's a laundry list of analysis and studies and so on that still has to be done. That's all part and parcel of the site plan process and normal. So we'll do our best, but just be prepared that this is kind of the beginning of something, not the end of something. So thanks for attending, and at this point we'll entertain questions. Ron?
Yeah, sorry, thank you. We'll try and keep them down to 5.
Sure. Yeah, well, that's fine. You're the only media actually physically here, so you know, we can afford you some latitude.
All right. So just clarifying what you want, so you're a Quebec-based company, and this how many developments have you done in Quebec?
Oh, how many developments do we have in Quebec? We run a big portfolio of strip malls, hotel, and residential across the country. Actually, we also have in Alberta and Mont-Tremblant and Montreal.
And if we want to address the question specifically insofar as this asset class is concerned, we have a project in Saint-Agathe-des-Monts in Quebec that's going to break ground literally in probably 6 weeks. Same goes for Mont-Tremblant, which we've been working on for the last 2.5 years, almost going on 3 years now. And this project here, and we have another site in Saint-Adèle that we're working on. And we're searching actively for a couple more. The whole notion behind this concept is that it's a repeatable model. And by being a repeatable model, our timelines get shaved dramatically in the planning process. I'll give you an example. The planning of the first project we had in Tremblant from A to Z took about 18 months. And the planning for Saint-Agathe took about 6 weeks. And that was because we're using repeatable architectural drawings, engineering drawings, mechanical drawings, very much like a franchise. And in fact, we like to say we are a corporate franchise. We don't franchise out, but we're like an internal corporate franchise where every product, every site is the same as the previous one. And if we can improve it, it'll be, you know, similar to the next site.
Okay, so you are the co-owners?
Yes.
Okay. So you mentioned if this goes through to fruition completely, I guess you mentioned 3 phases, right? And the 3 phases together would be 600 units, over $100 million. These amenities you mentioned, the beach volleyball, the tennis courts, all the rest of it, is that the final built-out three-phase project, or is some of that going to be in the immediate first phase?
The first phase is gonna comprise, is it eight buildings?
It's 8 buildings.
It's 8 buildings. The first phase will comprise 8 buildings, and we've made it an objective, not an objective, we made it an essential that the amenities in the central courtyard are part of that first phase. So it's kind of odd because when the engineers were phasing this out for us, they put that as the last phase, and we said, no, it's got to be part of the first phase. So
The site itself is an amenity as well.
Yeah,
The woods and all.
right. The hiking trails that we're gonna have throughout, et cetera, but the actual improved amenities, if you will form part of phase 1, which is the 8 building blocks that will house upwards of 200 units. And depending on the demand and depending on the support that we get, of course, that'll determine what the velocity is of subsequent rollout of phase 2 and 3. There's also a small commercial component to it, small 8,000 square foot facility that might be, whether it's a coffee shop, a yoga studio, some amenities, indoor amenities that cater to the center as well. That will be determined when we put that in place. Of course, it's going to depend on the demand.
All right.
I do just want to underline actually how much of a differentiator that is. You know, most developers, when you think about the amenities that the gentleman just mentioned, those are not money makers. And yet they've made a commitment that those things are going to be provided in phase 1. We don't have to wait until the entire site is built out to see those.
So the first batch of workers you want to attract there, they'll have access to volleyball courts. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But I just want to add that they're also a good business decision because we want to create a moat around the business, and we want it to be a place that people want to live because the copycats will show up, and they'll show up in a hurry. I mean, we're the tip of the spear, as Shelley has pointed out a few times. We're the tip of the spear, and the copycats will be there, and people want to live in our community. So you want people to stay.
Okay, so just to clarify, the media release mentioned 140 units. You're saying more like 200 in phase 1? Or is that an elastic sort of concept depending on how the ground shapes up?
Well, that's it. The truth is there'll be minimum 8 buildings, but one of the things that we're doing as of today is we're going to be going out to the business community, talking to a lot of the employers and taking the pulse of the area. You know, we've got some numbers being thrown around. We need 400 jobs here, 350. That's 750. We'd love to build 750, but who knows that we need 750. So, you know, in business, it's a bit difficult. You try to predict how much you're going to have, but not go over. So we're going to find out from the community and the employers around here how many spaces they need, and non-employers as well. Just regular people are going to want to move in there. We have a feeling there'll be quite a big seniors presence in our site as well. You know, you could have a Golden Girls scenario where there's 3 ladies living in one of the 3 bedrooms. We see that very much, and when the amenities are there, they're going to want to live there as well. So.
The other thing just to distinguish is to make a differentiation between apartments or units and suites. So when we mentioned 200, I probably used the wrong word. The word is suites, which is bedrooms with their own private bathrooms, so we can have a 1-bedroom suite apartment. We can have a 2-bedroom suite apartment. We can have a 3-bedroom suite apartment. So the 120 units, it refers to the number of apartment units in 8 buildings, in 8 separate buildings, which when you translate what that could represent, it represents upwards of 200 suites. So upwards of 200 beds, if we want to use common vernacular, common nomenclature. I hope that clarified your.
Every bedroom has a bathroom that can be closed. The bedroom itself is like a mini hotel room within an apartment, but it's still a classic apartment.
So you mentioned that Mr. Beatty, Mr. Bacon, there's the financial partners as well, and then obviously there's your company. Are there any other partners involved?
We've got a short list of people to talk to immediately that have shown presence, have shown interest in this, and after this announcement, it's our chance to go after them and talk to them in January. I'll be bothering anybody between now and Christmas.
So you're receiving other partners as well.
Absolutely.
All right. So Mayor Burrow, just to clarify, this 30% rule, CMHC, it's that 30% of total units in a given development have to be
No, see, that's a
Okay.
planning type question.
Yeah, yeah.
This is, that's a
Okay.
planning type question.
Yeah, yeah.
This is, what I'm talking about is an affordability thing. So if you take a look at what CMHC has said for many, many years, their guideline is, people can afford to live if they pay no more than 30% of their gross wage in shelter costs. And so it's really significant because quite often when we entertain developments, you know, the discussions at municipalities is a requirement to have 10% or 20% be considered affordable housing. That definition of affordable tends to be 80% of market value, and it's a little bit different.
Right, it's usually 10% of the units.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
So what we're talking about here from the developers is 100% of the project follows the CMHC 30% affordability guidance.
So 30% of someone's gross income
That's right.
on shelter.
That's right. And that's based on analysis of real local wages. So that's not some hypothetical number from Toronto or Ottawa or what have you. These are truly affordable within the local context, 100% of the project.
So you had the Trudeau government dusting off old ideas about wartime housing and so on that's been in the news and so on. Are there any federal or provincial incentive programs that could help something like this and should target is affordability?
Well, so this is all part of the collaboration that I mentioned. It's a great question. I don't have an answer yet because we're pursuing any of the. Oh, okay, fair enough. So hot off the press. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, CMHC, as you know, is a federal initiative, and they have given, they have something called MLI Select, which gives a 50-year amortization. So, you know, as we stretch out the length of the loan, the mortgage payment goes down. And in fact, without that, it would be very hard to attract investment in the project because the returns simply wouldn't compete, especially with what's going on with the interest rates. The second thing that has happened at the federal level is they've removed the GST. So, you know, there's a self-assessment after you finish an apartment complex, and if it costs 50 million, you got to actually pay sales tax on it as soon as you've finished it. Well, the Liberal government has removed that, and then another 8% or 8.5% in this province has been removed by the provincial. So now all of a sudden, to build multifamily units in this province has become 13.5% cheaper than 6 months ago. So this should start helping to solve the problem in this area. So you have the federal, the provincial that play ball. And now in this particular case, we have the municipal that plays ball, both municipalities that are playing ball. They're going to be helping to bring a lot of the infrastructure in place. The business community is going to help there as well. And then you have some local employers that are coming in and pushing behind the project.
So does the township have to extend service in there?
So that's an
Tent City, I
open,
guess.
that's an open question. So for instance, if you consider one of the industries that we've got in the area, we've got Newterra, right? So that's one of the things that may be analyzed to see, you know, can we provide a local filtration system? So whatever it takes to make this happen, those are the options that we're going to take a look at.
So just two questions on the site itself. So Rouse Corners, I mean, locals will remember it from, if they've been here long enough, the Elizabethtown Fair, Orsorama and stuff like that. It's been associated in the public's mind with public use. I think there was even a Relate for Life event there. So will any of that site remain township land for public use, or is it all being used ultimately for housing or other purposes?
So at this point, we are looking at a lease arrangement with the developers. And as they said, they're bringing the recreational amenities in as part of phase one. So perhaps the nature of the recreational activities that take place there may morph a little bit, as it has done over history. But those things will be available right up front. So do I see horses running or, you know, trotting around inside this particular development? No.
Well, there haven't been for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
But, okay, so these amenities are not just private to the residents there, they'll be open to the community.
That's right. They're for existing and future residents.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we now embark on, obviously have a rezoning process, which requires a public meeting. And I mean, the township's most recent experience with a public meeting was less than pleasant.
Yeah.
Are you worried at all about NIMBY?
I don't think so. I think the two proposals are night and day, to tell you the truth. I'm sure that there are gonna be some people, for whom this is a surprise, and they might have some concerns. And they'll have some valid questions, and I expect those answers to come as part of the public, process that you've mentioned. I'm gonna go ahead and actually go directly to what I think you're referring to. I don't think we're gonna be having to call the OPP or anything like that.
Okay.
There really isn't a day goes by that somebody doesn't talk to me about the housing crisis and the concern that they have, if not themselves, then, for their son or their daughter, and basically given up on ever being able to move out of the house and that type of thing. So I think very broadly, this should be well received, especially because we're not just stuffing shoeboxes and using up every square foot of land that there is. I think the developers have done an excellent job here of giving a nod to the recreational history of the property and maintaining that, even though it'll look a little different moving forward.
And Old Facetious aside here, has that site, the fairgrounds site, has it been vacant for a decade now or roughly? Or?
Yeah, I think I hesitate to give you a specific. We've got a staff report that talks about the history, but it's been on the decline, I think, for over 10 years, one way or another, either in the public gallery or as an elected official. I've been around here for going on 13 years now, and it's been on the decline, all of that time. So we've had fires, we've had insurance that replaced the shade pavilion and so on, but it is a shadow of its former self, no question.
Right, it's sort of a low traffic area compared to, you've got that's North Augusta Road as opposed to say Stewart Boulevard and 29 on the other side of the city.
Yes.
This is the less traveled, mostly residential traffic there.
Yep, no question. And I think if you were to take a look at the site itself, other than the half dozen to 8 special event days, which really is not enough to sustain a site. You can't build a plan around, 8 events. Mostly it's people that are just walking around the track getting exercise, perhaps with their 4-legged friend or just perhaps with their 2-legged neighbor.
Nice.
And so they'll still have an opportunity to do that.
That'll still be available with the new event.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, not a walking track, but certainly trails and so on. Much like any of the other open spaces, both in the township and the city that get used by dog walkers. So you've heard the developers. One of them's a dog owner himself. So. But I don't think that we could have had somebody present us with a better plan to sort of tick all the boxes.
Okay. Just if I can just add, it's not a gated community.
Okay.
That probably answers a lot of what where you're coming from.
Yeah, that's
Right, it's not like a condo arrangement either, right?
Right.
I'm assuming there'd be some kind of management of those amenities, so people don't just drop in and out, but.
I guess we'll find that out as the plan unfolds. We'll get some of those details. The important thing to us is that the amenities would be there.
Okay.
That's for sure.
People want to play take-up hockey on a skating rink, there'll be somebody to talk to about. Yeah. Okay. I guess my last question would be, so this is geared towards labor force. And I guess the hope from a commercial quarter standpoint is it quickly attracts people that are needed in places like Leclerc.
Yeah,
But really, it's open to anybody, right? There's no way to restrict your buyer pool to people who fit a certain demographic.
no, I don't think that was the intent. I think that the developers are ready with phase 2 or phase 3 if there's that much demand. If the workforce itself gobbles up entire phase 1, and we still have seniors knocking on the door looking for a place to live, having the experience that I've had with these gentlemen over the last 4 months, that phone call is going to happen like 5 minutes after, after it needs to.
Okay, and I guess, sorry, I think this actually is one last question here, maybe to Charlie or to David or Shelley. The corridors toolbox includes potentially incentives for attracting companies here and so on. Are there any kind of tax incentives or other form of incentives that attracted these folks here or that we need to?
Did you want to feel that, Charlie? And I'll just ask you to speak up to make sure the mic catches it, which, this will be posted later.
So our work with campus habitation around communicating with them about the value proposition for Browse Corners was really about connecting them with employers and understanding the demand in the region to try to underwrite or to support a risk mitigation. And that's really what our role was bringing them here, introducing them to the employer community, the manufacturing employer community, introducing them to potential investors and partners, and introducing them to and supporting their communication with the various municipalities, which has been really a remarkable experience, and the support they've gotten from this municipality and Brockville and so on has been really remarkable. And so our work was really to mitigate risk and accelerate investment and shorten the process, which is vital to folks like Mark and Rafi. In terms of tax incentives and so on, we don't have the authority to provide any sort of tax incentives or anything like that. Yeah, if that answers your question.
I will just mention that that's a prime example of what the municipality is going to continue doing in the way of a collaboration and a partnership. We may have access to grant streams that private developers don't, but if we partner and some of those grant streams may be more attractive if it's a multi-municipal application. Those are all the things that we're actively investigating right now to help accelerate phase 2 and phase 3 and see this whole thing play out.
I guess I would also say that with that, essentially 600 more residents, are you gonna need to do any road improvements there than the 28 or?
That's a question for the county. I think the road is in fairly decent shape, but there's a traffic.
Actually, yeah, I have the answer to that. The answer is no, there won't be required any improvements. We do have I think it's the third document from the top. The thickest one is actually the traffic study.
Okay.
And it confirms that, it had studied, the requirement of traffic lights. It had studied the requirement of a left turning lane when you're heading south. And it established that all the categories fell in ABC. And if you fall in ABC, then there's minimal impact. You won't have a lineup of more than, I think when it established when it's fully built out, if it was forecast to be fully built out by 2035, the most number of vehicles you'd have waiting at the stop sign would be 4. So the conclusion of the report from the engineers said that there's not going to be any significant impact on the road network requirements.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for coming on this special occasion. Again, a very proud moment, I think, for the township. Lots and lots of work ahead of us, especially for our planning department. There's a number of pages to go through, but as I say, we wanted to seize on the opportunity to let the public know at the earliest opportunity, and this is that. And so, in closing, I'll wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you in the new year and hit the deck run. Thanks again.
Thank you.